The Call from the Dark, Part 3. A sharp ringing tore through the darkness. Daniel gasped awake. His body was cold, damp, pressed against something rough. Dirt, he could smell it. Wet soil, decaying leaves, the scent of earth closing in. His limbs felt heavy, his mind foggy. Then the ringing again. The sound of a telephone. Daniel forced his eyes open. The world around him was wrong. Not the forest, not the road. He was somewhere else. Somewhere underground. The walls were tight, pressed close. Roots jutted from the ceiling like grasping fingers. A tunnel. A grave. Panic surged through him as he tried to move. His muscles screamed in protest. His arms were stiff, numb with cold. The phone kept ringing. Daniel turned his head toward the sound. A telephone sat in the dirt a few feet away, the same phone from the booth. His breath hitched. Number, that's impossible. And yet, it rang, echoing in the small, suffocating space. With trembling fingers, Daniel reached forward. Every nerve in his body screamed at him not to answer, but something stronger, fear, curiosity, the need for answers, forced his hand. He lifted the receiver. Silence. Then, a whisper. "You're here." Daniel's heart pounded. "Emma?" A long pause. Then a slow inhale. "You left me," she said, "and I waited." Daniel swallowed hard. "Where am I?" A rustling sound, like something shifting in the dirt. "You found me," she whispered. Daniel's fingers tightened around the phone. His mind raced. This isn't real. This can't be real. But the walls, the cold, the weight of the earth around him. He looked around, searching for an exit. The tunnel stretched behind him, fading into darkness. Ahead, it narrowed, too tight, too small to crawl through. Trapped. His breath quickened. "Emma, I didn't mean to leave you." His voice cracked. "I was a kid. I was scared." Silence. Then, a scrape. Daniel stiffened. The sound came from behind him. Slow, deliberate, like something crawling. His pulse thundered. He twisted, shining his phone's flashlight. The beam flickered, shaking in his trembling grip. The tunnel was empty. Then the whisper came, right next to his ear. "I'm scared too." Daniel lunged forward, dropping the phone. His breath came in ragged gasps as he clawed at the dirt, desperate to get out. The tunnel shifted. The walls moved. The space around him felt smaller, as if the earth itself was closing in. Then, a hand shot out of the dirt. Small, pale, fingers curling around his wrist. Daniel screamed. He kicked, struggled, the weight of the dirt pressing down on him. The tunnel was collapsing. The air grew thick, heavy, and then a blinding light, a voice, distant, familiar. "Daniel, wake up!" A jolt of pain, a rush of air. Daniel's eyes flew open. He was outside. Rain pelted his face. He was lying in the mud, the forest around him spinning. Above him, Alex's face loomed, drenched, breathless. "Jesus, Dan, what the hell happened?" Alex gripped his shoulders, shaking him. Daniel gasped for air, his chest heaving. His fingers dug into the wet ground, not dirt, not a tunnel, the road, the real world. He struggled to sit up. His head throbbed. His clothes were soaked in sweat and rain. Alex's gaze was sharp, scanning him. "You weren't breathing when I found you." Daniel swallowed, his throat raw. "I was underground. I saw her. I heard her." Alex's face darkened. "No, Dan. You were right here. I found you in the middle of the road." Daniel's heart pounded. His fingers instinctively touched his wrist, where something had grabbed him. His stomach dropped. A handprint, small, bruised into his skin, not his own. Alex followed his gaze and paled. Neither of them spoke. The storm had passed. The forest was silent. The phone booth stood motionless by the road. Daniel didn't look at it. He didn't have to. He knew it would ring again, and next time he might not wake up.